It started on a Wednesday morning, gray skies, a stale cup of coffee, and me running late. Nothing about that day screamed your life is about to change. But if I've learned anything since then, it's that betrayal doesn't come with a warning label. It doesn't knock politely. It slips in through the cracks when you're not looking, when your guard's down, when you're just trying to make it to work on time. Haley and I had been married for 5 years. We met in grad school, two overworked caffeine addicts in the same economics seminar. We clicked fast, moved in fast, and 5 years later, it still felt fast. We had the same phones, the same laptop bags, even the same dentist. It was one of those cute things people use to tease us about. Matching phones. Matching playlists. Matching everything. That morning, we were both flying around the apartment like bees in a jar. She had an early meeting, something about quarterly revenue, and I had a client pitch I couldn't afford to screw up. I grabbed a phone off the counter, tossed it in my bag, kissed her cheek, and ran out the door. I didn't realize the mistake until I was halfway to the office. The phone buzzed in the passenger seat. I glanced down, expecting a message from one of my coworkers. But it wasn't my phone. And it wasn't my coworker. Michael from the office. "You looked stunning in that dress. Can't wait to see you again." That was it. Just one line. One line that hit harder than any punch I'd ever taken. My first reaction wasn't anger, it was confusion. It was the kind of message you stare at, reread, then reread again, hoping your brain has somehow made a mistake. But there it was, clear as day, glowing on the screen. Her phone. Michael's name. A message that didn't belong in any professional setting. I didn't move. The red light turned green and the car behind me honked. I drove forward mechanically like I wasn't in my body anymore. Haley called within minutes. From my number. I picked up. "Hey," I said, trying to sound normal. I'm not sure I pulled it off. "Oh hey," she chirped. Too bright. Too easy. I think we grabbed each other's phones. Oops. "Yeah," I said. "Looks like it." She didn't mention the message. Not even a hint. Just silence for a beat, then, "I'll swing by your office and swap them?" I paused. "Actually," I said slowly, "I forgot some paperwork. I'm heading home anyway." Another beat. "Okay," she replied, chipper again. "See you soon." When I pulled into the driveway, my hands were shaking. I don't know why I was nervous. I hadn't done anything wrong. And yet, the guilt wasn't on her yet, it was on me. That's how disorienting these things can be. You find a threat out of place and suddenly you feel like the intruder. She was waiting by the door, smiling. She had both her phones in hand like it was a harmless mix-up. Like it wasn't the beginning of an unraveling. "I think this one's yours," she said, holding it out. I took it, nodded, and held hers up. "Michael says hi." That wiped the smile off her face for half a second. Then she let out a laugh, light and airy. "Oh my God, that guy. He's such a flirt. You know how he is." I didn't know how he was. I didn't even know who he was. I'd heard her mention a Michael once or twice, something about him being a new team lead in finance. That's all I had. A name. A name now permanently burned into my brain. She kept going. "He's always sending stuff like that to everyone. Total office clown. It's harmless." She said it so smoothly it almost worked. Her tone, her body language, confident, relaxed. But I wasn't watching her tone anymore. I was watching her eyes. The way they flicked down and to the side. The slight raise of her left eyebrow, just like she did when she got nervous during job interviews. I knew her tells. I just hadn't looked for them in a long time. "It's harmless," she said again, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "We joke around. You know, just to keep the team energy up. It's a grind in the office. You need a little levity." I didn't say anything. Just nodded. I could have pressed. I could have asked why he thought it was okay to say he couldn't wait to see her again. I could have asked what dress he meant, or when he last saw her, or how often these jokes happened. But I didn't. Because the moment I saw her eyes shift, I knew I wasn't going to get the truth from her. Not yet. Maybe not ever. She seemed relieved I didn't push. She even leaned in for a kiss, and I let her. It felt mechanical, like kissing a ghost. She went back to getting ready, talking about her meeting with fake enthusiasm, like the whole thing was behind us. Like it never happened. But it did. I saw it. I read the message. And something inside me cracked. That crack didn't explode, not then. But it started spreading. Quiet, invisible. Like a hairline fracture in a windshield, just waiting for the right bump in the road to shatter everything. The rest of the day was a blur. I went through the motions, sat through my meeting, even laughed at a coworker's joke. Though I couldn't remember what it was about. All I could think about was that message. That damn message. "You looked stunning in that dress. Can't wait to see you again." I played it on repeat. Wondered what dress he meant. The red one she wore to her friend's birthday? The navy one from her office holiday party? Was it recent? Had I seen her wear it? By the time I got home that night, I had questions I wasn't sure I wanted answers to. She acted like nothing had changed. Asked how my day was, if I wanted to order Thai, told me about a funny Slack thread her team had going. I nodded, smiled where appropriate, pretended I was still playing the same game she was. But I wasn't. That was the day I stopped being the trusting husband. The day I stopped assuming honesty was the default setting in our marriage. I didn't tell her I'd seen the message before she called. I didn't tell her the name stuck in my throat like a splinter. What I did do was start listening, start watching. And that, more than anything, is how it all began. After that message, my perspective changed. Not instantly, but like adjusting your rearview mirror and suddenly realizing how much you've been missing. I started replaying conversations, moments, choices, things that hadn't meant much to me when they happened but now rang out like alarm bells. The first thing I noticed was her clothes. I don't mean that in some jealous, possessive way, I mean literally the transformation. Haley used to live in cozy sweaters, joggers, and oversized tees she'd borrowed from me and never returned. She used to love comfort. Mornings were slow, coffee in her robe, messy buns, mismatched socks. That was the woman I married, unfiltered, effortlessly herself. But that started changing maybe 6 or 7 months ago. First it was subtle. Tighter jeans, new heels, polished nails all the time. Then it got louder. Dresses that clung in ways her old self would have laughed off. Lipstick in shades she used to call too much. She told me she was experimenting with confidence, inspired by some influencer who ran a self-love podcast. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She said it helped her feel powerful. I nodded and told her she looked beautiful. And she did. But now I wonder, who was she dressing for? Around that same time, she got into fitness. Haley, who once proudly declared burpees a tool of Satan, suddenly became obsessed with the gym. She started waking up early, like 5:30 a.m. early, to hit spin classes and hit workouts. She downloaded some app that tracked her macros and took selfies in front of full-length mirrors, flexing muscles I didn't even know she had. At first, I was proud of her. I thought it was about health. Then it started feeling performative. The selfies weren't just for herself. She posted them, tagged locations, geotagged gyms she didn't even go to. She spent an hour editing captions about growth and inner strength while I cooked dinner for us. But she barely ate dinner anymore. Another thing, her phone. Once, it was a shared object between us. She'd leave it charging in the kitchen or on the bed without a second thought. She used to hand it to me and ask me to reply to her texts if her hands were messy or if she was in the bath. Now, always on do not disturb. Always face down. Always with her, even to the bathroom. I'm not an idiot. Phones tell stories, even when the screen's off. She also got busy. At first, I chalked it up to her new position at work. She got promoted to a team lead role last winter, and it came with more responsibilities. That's what she said. Anyway, more team dinners, more networking events, more after-hours strategy meetings. She started using words she never used before: synergy, scale, mindshare. Sometimes I didn't know if I was talking to my wife or a TED Talk. And when I asked about her day, the details were always vague. She'd say things like, just a bunch of back-to-back meetings, or nothing exciting, just corporate chaos. But never specifics. No names. No stories. Just generic walls of work speak. We used to debrief each other over dinner, laugh about awkward coworkers, vent about annoying clients. But now, asking her about her day felt like walking into a minefield. She was either exhausted or just didn't want to talk about work. She was tired of talking, but not of texting. She was glued to that phone, smiling at it like it told her better jokes than I ever could. We stopped touching. That was the part that hurt the most. You don't realize how much your relationship depends on little things until they disappear. Haley used to put her feet in my lap when we watched TV. She'd grab my hand in the grocery store or sneak kisses in the kitchen. She was warm, present, affectionate. Then she got cold. It didn't happen overnight. One evening she said she was too tired to cuddle. Another night, she rolled over and fell asleep before I turned off the lamp. Little by little, the space between us in bed grew. She started sleeping closer to the edge, hugging a pillow. I didn't ask why. I just mirrored her. That's how distance works. You think you're respecting space, but really you're just slowly getting erased. She used to hum while doing the dishes. Sing along to whatever playlist was on. She stopped that too. Stop joking around. Stop teasing me the way she used to. Everything became transactional. Can you grab milk? Did you pay the electric bill? Don't forget your dentist appointment. We were roommates managing logistics. But the worst shift, the one I really should have caught, was how defensive she became. About everything. I'd ask a basic question, what time will you be home? And suddenly she was accusing me of keeping tabs on her. I'd comment on how dressed up she looked and she'd snap back with, so what, I can't look nice anymore? Every question turned into an argument. Every observation was a threat. She told me I was being paranoid once. That stung. Because I wasn't, at least not yet. But she made me feel like I was the problem. Like I was too sensitive. Too suspicious. Too insecure. That's the worst part about slow betrayals, you start doubting yourself before you doubt them. I didn't confront her. Not directly. I just started observing. Recording things in my head like evidence for a case I didn't even want to build. I paid attention to the times she left and how long she was gone. I noticed how her stories shifted, how she'd say she was with some friends, never naming them, never offering to show me photos or texts like she used to. One night she came home after midnight. Said they went out for drinks after a workshop. She looked radiant. That's the only word I can think of. Flushed cheeks. Glossy eyes. That unmistakable glow of someone who just had a good time. But it wasn't the kind of glow you bring home to your husband. It was the kind you try to hide behind the story of a late-night Uber and an inside joke you won't share. She got in the shower without kissing me goodnight. I sat on the couch that night for a long time, just staring at the blank TV screen. Listening to the water run. Wondering how we got here. That's when I remembered something her sister had said last Christmas. We were at Haley's parents' house sitting around the fire pit. Her sister, tipsy on wine, leaned toward me and said, "You're a good guy, you know." She's lucky. I hope she remembers that. I thought it was a compliment back then. Now I think it was a warning. It wasn't just the clothes. Or the phone. Or the distance. It was the erasure of us. She stopped sharing her life with me. Stopped laughing with me. Stopped choosing me. And I just kept explaining it away. Told myself it was stress. Told myself she needed space. Told myself I'd been too distracted with work and maybe if I just made more time for her, things would bounce back. But here's the truth, I didn't lose her in one big moment. I lost her in pieces. In silence. In shrugged shoulders. In fake smiles. In unanswered texts. In half-finished conversations. I was so busy trying to be understanding that I didn't see she was already gone. Now I can't unsee it. The signs are everywhere and they all point to the same truth. She was changing. And I was no longer part of the picture she was painting. The final confirmation didn't come in the form of a dramatic confession or a slip of the tongue. It came in pixels. In surveillance footage. The irony? I'd installed the home security system myself. Back when we got that break-and scare down the street, Haley had begged me to make the house feel safer. I didn't realize then that the only intruder I'd need to worry about was already walking freely through the front door. It was a Thursday night when she told me she'd be working late. No reason to doubt her, except for the months of doubt already living rent-free in my gut. I played along. Told her to take her time. Said I'd order pizza and watch something stupid on TV. But when she left, I didn't turn on Netflix. I pulled out the tablet. The one connected to the home cameras, front porch, living room, kitchen, hallway, even one in the backyard. She didn't know the system saved footage to the cloud. I never had a reason to mention it. At 11:16 p.m., the front porch cam triggered. I watched the feed go live. She was back. Not alone. He was tall, athletic build, wearing an expensive-looking wool coat. His hair was slicked back the way smug guys in sales always wear it. She smiled up at him, laughing at something he said as he reached forward to open the door for her, my door. They stepped inside like they belonged there. She didn't even hesitate. She didn't scan the room. Didn't act like she was sneaking around. No. She walked in like this was normal. He followed, and in the hallway, just beneath our wedding photo, he leaned in and kissed her cheek. That's what broke me. Not the laugh. Not the kiss. Not even that she brought him into our home. It was the photo. That picture of us taken on the Oregon coast 3 years ago. Wind in her hair. My arms wrapped around her. Both of us smiling like we were sure of something. It hung there like a cruel joke, watching the slow death of the promise it represented. I watched the two of them walk into the bedroom. Our bedroom. The feed didn't show what happened next. The camera angle only caught the hallway. But it didn't need to show more. I saw enough. He left at 3:07 a.m. She didn't walk him out. He just slipped out quietly, closing the door behind him like a seasoned guest. She reappeared 10 minutes later, hair tied back, wearing one of her oversized tees, the same ones she used to wear when she curled up next to me on the couch. She walked into the kitchen, poured herself a glass of water, and scrolled through her phone like it was any other night. Like nothing had happened. Like I didn't exist. I didn't sleep. I didn't cry. I didn't even rage. I just sat there with the tablet in my lap, watching the footage on loop until sunrise painted the walls with the soft gold we used to share over morning coffee. She was still asleep when I finally stood up. The next few days I pretended. I asked her about her late night. She said it ran long, that her boss insisted on one last drink to celebrate a deal. I asked if she was tired. She shrugged. Just a little. I asked what the deal was about. She paused too long and then gave some vague nonsense about quarter-end adjustments. I nodded, told her I was proud of her. She smiled and kissed me on the cheek. The same cheek that smug bastard had kissed 2 nights before. I made my move the following week. I waited for her to plan another one of her team dinners. She texted me that Thursday around 6:30 p.m. letting me know she'd be home late. "Don't wait up, right heart," she wrote. The emoji was a nice touch. I imagined her sending it from across a candlelit table, maybe while he stepped away to use the restroom. She thought I was home, same as always. Thought I'd be watching TV, eating leftovers, staying in my own lane like a good husband. She didn't know I'd already packed her life into boxes. Didn't know I'd taken every dress she'd bought during this new era, every high heel, every perfume bottle, every memory she wore for him, and carried it outside. One by one. Quietly. It was almost meditative how calm I felt. I cleared our closet. Emptied her side of the drawers. Took down the picture of us on the coast. Replaced it with a framed photo of just me and my dog, Max, who passed 2 years ago. I figured if I was going to be haunted, I'd rather be haunted by loyalty. Then I went to the kitchen. Turned on the gas stove. I threw in her fashion magazines, the ones she used to leave open on the counter, marked with post-it notes and phrases like, "this," or "my vibe." On top of them I laid her clothes. Her blouses. Her scarves. The red dress I now assumed Michael had loved so much. A bottle of that perfume she only wore when she claimed she had meetings. I dropped in a match. The flame didn't roar. It crackled. Soft, angry, almost respectful. Like it knew what this meant to me. I stood there and watched. Not with satisfaction. With clarity. I wasn't burning her things. I was burning the illusion. By the time she got home, it was nearly 1 a.m. The fire was out, but the smell lingered, smoke and lavender and finality. The ash pile in the fire pit still glowed faintly under the porch light. She froze on the steps, her purse slipping from her shoulder as her eyes locked onto the scene. She didn't move for a long time. Neither did I. I watched her from the living room window. Watched as realization swept across her face like a tidal wave. First confusion. Then denial. Then panic. Her breathing changed. Her hands trembled as she stepped closer to the pit, as if she could unburn the truth just by willing it away. She called my name. Softly at first. Then louder. I didn't answer. She pulled out her phone. Called me. I let it ring. She tried again. Left a voicemail. Her voice cracked. I turned the phone off. No shouting. No confrontation. No long monologue. Everything that needed to be said had already burned. I had nothing left to give her. No rage. No tears. No explanations. Just absence. That night, I slept on the couch. Not because she was home, I didn't let her in, but because it felt symbolic. The couch was where I'd waited for her too many nights. Where I'd sat wondering if I was imagining things, if I was being unfair. That couch had held more loneliness than either of us admitted. It deserved to witness the end. The next morning, the sun rose like it always does, indifferent. She was gone. I don't know where she went. She didn't leave a note. I didn't look for her. I spent the rest of the day cleaning. Clearing out the bedroom. Stripping it of the shared life that now felt like a crime scene. I boxed up what little remained of her that hadn't touched him. There wasn't much. And then I sat at the kitchen table. Alone. Finally alone. And I wasn't afraid of the silence. Not anymore. She came back the next evening. I heard her car pull up slowly, cautiously, like the driveway had become foreign to her. I was in the kitchen, pretending to wash dishes I had no appetite to dirty. The water ran hot, the sponge moved in circles, but my mind was somewhere else entirely. Somewhere quiet. I didn't go to the window to see her face. I didn't need to. I heard the crunch of her boots against the gravel, the hesitant clicks of the gate, and then her steps stopped. She saw the fire pit. Still blackened, still rimmed in ash. Nothing but cold charred circles and the faint scent of perfume and paper. The wind picked up. I imagined her pulling her coat tighter, suddenly feeling exposed in her own skin. I didn't go outside. Didn't want to see her try to piece together what was already gone. Then the front door handle rattled. She still had a key. I had meant to change the locks. I hadn't. It clicked open, creaked like always. I didn't turn. For a moment, nothing. Then the softest voice. "Mark?" I shut off the water. Her voice wavered again. "Can we talk?" I picked up the towel, dried my hands, slow and steady, like her presence wasn't a storm behind me. I didn't know. She tried again. I didn't think. I turned then, just enough to see her standing in the hallway like a stranger. Coat still on. Hair tangled. Her eyes scanning me for a reaction that wasn't coming. "You didn't think," I said, voice flat. Silence stretched between us like a canyon. She stepped forward. "Please, just..." "I need to explain." "I don't need it," I said. She blinked. "You don't even want to hear it." "No," I cut her off. "I don't." I walked past her, not brusquely, not in a rush. Just, done. She turned as I passed, reaching out for my arm. I sidestepped it. "Where do I go?" she asked, like the question had just formed in her mouth without checking in with her brain. "I don't know," I said. "But not here. I live here, Mark." "Not anymore." Her mouth opened. Closed. She stood there, trying to play the part of the stunned wife. But the performance was tired. The script was old. "I didn't know what to do," she whispered. "You could have chosen us," I said. "You didn't." That landed. She looked down, her jaw tightening. She wasn't crying yet. She thought she could still fix this. Still bargain. I moved to the living room and sat down on the couch. Same spot I'd sat when I watched her bring another man into her home. Same spot where the silence had finally become clearer than her voice. She followed, hovering near the edge of the room like a guest waiting for an invitation that wasn't coming. "I made a mistake," she offered. I didn't look up. "You made a series of them. Over months." I was confused. "No," I said, finally locking eyes with her. "You were confident. You were calculated. You were careful. You had choices and you made them." She bit her lip and I recognized the tick. It used to mean she was holding something in, usually a laugh. This time it was desperation. "I never meant to hurt you." I almost laughed. "Almost? You just wanted the fun without the consequence," I said. "You wanted the fantasy. And you thought I'd always be too blind or too loyal to notice." She opened her mouth, but I raised a hand. "Enough." "No more," I said. "You've already said more than enough with your actions." She stepped back, her breath shaky. "I'll go," she murmured. "But I'll be back for my things." "They're already boxed," I said. "Spare bedroom." She blinked. "You, when?" "Thursday night. When you were supposed to be at the office party." Her hand covered her mouth and for a moment she looked like she might break. But I didn't move. Didn't offer comfort. That wasn't mine to give anymore. I turned away and stared at the blank TV screen. She stood there in silence for a long time, waiting for something. A tear. A scream. A plea. But I didn't give her anything. Eventually, the door opened. Then closed. And that was it. No dramatic goodbye. No parting kiss. No final confession. Just cold silence where a life used to be. I stayed on the couch that night. Not because I was shattered, but because I wasn't. I needed the stillness. Needed to feel the weight of the house without her in it. It was quiet. Not lonely. Just quiet. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, the silence didn't feel like an accusation. It felt like a decision. One I had finally made. The next morning, I brewed coffee the way I used to before all this. 2 scoops strong. No sugar. I didn't make her a cup. Didn't leave the pot on for her. That small gesture had been one of our last rituals. Gone now. I sat at the table with the sunlight pouring through the blinds, and I let it warm my face. I listened to the sound of the heater kicking in, to the occasional creak of the wood floors. I noticed the world again. Without the buzz of my phone. Without her hurried explanations. Without the pressure to pretend. By noon, I began unpacking myself from our life. I took down the framed quote she loved: "In this house, we love loud and forgive louder." That one hit harder than I expected. I set it face down in the box with the other things I wouldn't be keeping. Her favorite books went into a separate stack. I left them by the door. I turned off the scent diffuser in the living room, lavender and vanilla, her favorite combo, and replaced it with something neutral. Fresh linen. Clean slate. I moved through the house with quiet precision, touching objects not with sadness, but with intention. What stays? What goes? What was mine before her? What was never really ours? In the hallway, I passed the photo wall. Wedding, honeymoon, her graduation. I paused. Then I took them down. Not angrily. Not vengefully. Just, finally. I boxed them up. All of them. By evening, there was room on the walls again. Blank spaces where stories used to hang. It didn't look lonely. It looked honest. And that night, when I crawled into bed, my bed, I laid right in the center. Not on the edge. Not making space for someone who wasn't coming back. The silence came again. But this time, I welcomed it. Because silence, when you're no longer being lied to, is not emptiness. It's peace. I didn't stay in the house much longer. It was too big. Too quiet in the wrong ways. The air felt stale, like it remembered every echo of every lie. Every room had a ghost of something I couldn't look at the same anymore, a memory tainted by hindsight. The kitchen was where she used to dance barefoot while cooking pasta. Now I could only see her scrolling through her phone, distracted, barely present. The bedroom felt smaller than ever. Not because she was gone, but because of everything she had left behind in silence. So I packed. It didn't take long. My life, stripped of her, fit into surprisingly few boxes. A few changes of clothes. My books. Some framed photos, none with her in them. My guitar, dusty but still mine. And the one coffee mug I'd kept, a chipped navy one with a faded logo from our old college. It had no sentimental value tied to her. It was just mine. I found a rental in a small town 2 hours away. A second-story apartment above a used bookstore of all places. It wasn't big. The kitchen could barely hold 2 people and the bedroom was more of a generous closet. But it was clean. Simple. Quiet in the right way. The kind of quiet you could fill, not the kind you had to escape. The first night I slept there, I left the windows open. Let the air roll in. No hum of a second car engine pulling into the driveway. No creak of someone trying to sneak into bed without waking me up. Just the breeze, the sound of wind through trees, and the occasional creak of old wood settling into its own silence. I didn't dream that night. I just slept. For the first time in a long while, I didn't wake up exhausted. I started new routines. Not because I wanted to reinvent myself, but because I needed to remember who I was without her narrative wrapped around me. Every morning, I walked to the corner cafe 2 blocks down, past a row of painted brick buildings that looked like a movie set. The barista already knew my order by day 3. Strong, no sugar, she'd say, handing me the cup before I could even ask. Her name was Lily. We never talked long, but she smiled like she meant it. I started going on walks. Just walking. No destination. No step counter. No podcast in my ears. I let my thoughts be loud. Let them wander. Some mornings I hated the quiet. Other times I welcomed it like an old friend. I found a park just outside of town with a small lake in the middle. No one ever seemed to be there. I'd sit on the same bench each time, watching the water ripple with the wind. Sometimes I'd bring a book. Sometimes I wouldn't. Sometimes I'd just sit and think about how simple life could be when you weren't waiting for someone to come home late. I stopped checking my phone every few minutes. The phantom urge faded slowly. So did the muscle memory of opening her text thread, half expecting a message that wouldn't come. My phone was quiet now. Peacefully so. People think healing comes in some cinematic wave. That one day you wake up, throw open the blinds, and everything feels clean again. It doesn't work like that. Healing comes in fragments. In coffee without tension. In days where you don't rehearse an argument in your head. In the quiet relief of walking into your home and knowing exactly who's there. I got to know my neighbors not because I tried, but because in towns like this, you don't have to. They wave when you pass. Ask if you've tried the pie at the diner. Invite you to barbecues even when you're the quiet guy who just moved in. There was no interrogation. Just acceptance. One Saturday morning, I joined a community cleanup event. Picked up trash by the river with a group of strangers who didn't ask about my past. That night, someone handed me a beer and I laughed at a joke without faking it. That laugh stuck with me. Back in the apartment, I found comfort in small things. Organizing drawers. Lighting a candle before bed. Putting my keys in the same spot each time. It sounds ridiculous, but those tiny rituals grounded me. I wasn't waiting anymore. For explanations. For apologies. For another shoe to drop. I bought a plant. A dumb, spiky thing I didn't even know how to care for. But it sat on the windowsill, reaching for the sun every morning. Some days I talked to it without realizing. I found myself again, not all at once and not with some grand, cinematic epiphany. Just gradually. A version of myself that had gotten buried under compromise. Under sacrifice. Under I'll just let it go this time. That version had opinions. Had hobbies. Had peace. I picked up my guitar again. The strings felt foreign at first, but muscle memory kicked in. I wasn't great. I never had been. But the notes filled the apartment in a way that felt right. It didn't matter that no one was there to hear it. It was mine. I even started journaling, something I hadn't done since college. Not for Instagram. Not for advice. Just to get the weight out of my head and onto a page. Some entries were one sentence. Some were pages. Some were just angry scratches. But it helped. I didn't try to meet anyone. Wasn't ready. Still not really. But I started noticing faces again. Smiles. Laughter that wasn't mine but didn't sting to witness. I watched couples walk through the bookstore below me. Some arguing. Some holding hands. I didn't envy them. I didn't hate them. I just saw them. For the first time, I wasn't comparing myself to what I used to have. I wasn't chasing her shadow anymore. She texted me once. Just one message a couple of weeks after I moved. Hey, just wanted to check in. I hope you're okay. I stared at it for a while. Not with anger. Just numb curiosity. Like reading a letter from someone who used to mean everything and now felt like a footnote in your own story. I didn't reply. She didn't text again. I left it at that. Maybe she expected me to lash out. Maybe she expected a long reply full of pain or accusations or closure. But I had already closed that chapter. She just didn't know it yet. Some nights, the ache still crept in. Usually when I was least prepared. Like when I saw a couple laughing over coffee or when a song played that reminded me of a road trip we once took. I'd feel that pinch in my chest like something unfinished still lived there. But then it would pass. Not fast. But it would. Grief doesn't need a funeral. Sometimes it just needs distance. I stopped saying her name out loud. Stopped retelling the story. Not because I was over it, but because it no longer defined me. She no longer defined me. What defined me now was the stillness of morning light on the hardwood floors. The smell of coffee that didn't come with tension. The sound of my own breathing in a space I could finally call mine. This new rhythm, it wasn't exciting. It wasn't loud. But it was honest. I was no longer navigating someone else's storm. I was walking through my own quiet rebuild. Piece by piece. And it was enough. The divorce went through faster than I expected. No courtroom drama. No fiery texts. No desperate voicemails. Haley didn't contest anything. She signed the papers the same week they were delivered. Maybe she thought silence would earn her dignity. Maybe she just didn't have the energy to fight a battle she knew she lost the night I burned everything she used to dress up her lies. A few days later, she sent a letter. Handwritten. Neat. Way too polished. She said she was confused, that she didn't mean for things to go that far. That what happened wasn't really about him, but about her own search for identity. I didn't respond. I didn't even finish reading it. Halfway through, the words started to blur into the same rhythm of every excuse I'd already heard or imagined. Lost, scared, unsure. She claimed it wasn't about love, wasn't about me. And maybe that was true. But it still shattered what we had. And that was the thing she never seemed to understand, Even if she hadn't meant to ruin it, she did. Intention doesn't rebuild trust. I folded the letter, placed it in the same fire pit as everything else she left behind, and lit the match without flinching. No grand farewell. No final conversation. Just ashes. Now I live by the ocean. Not in some big beach house, but a modest place where the air always smells like salt and the evenings stretch quiet and long. I walk most mornings. Drink coffee from the same chipped mug. I don't check my phone first thing anymore. I don't wonder where someone else is waking up. I don't brace myself for lies wrapped in a smile. There's no bitterness left. Just distance. Sometimes I think of her, not the betrayal, but the person I once knew. A laugh echoing in the hallway. A road trip playlist. A quiet Sunday morning. But those memories are like postcards now. Stuck in a box I no longer open. She's no longer my past or my pain. Just a name in an old story. And I've stopped reading that one.